As soon as they left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons. And the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons. And he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring towns, so that I may proclaim the message there also. For that is what I came out to do." And he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons.
So let's see. The taking of the mother-in-law's hand, we thought was interesting in that probably the others present would not take her hand, that she was possessed, and therefore that Jesus would actually take her hand was a very significant thing. And we talked about the demons as being feelings that people might fear, and in casting out demons was comforting people in the face of these feelings that are difficult, of fear and sadness and guilt in particular. A lot of other questions too, but I thought those were two of the most. Oh, and that he knew the demons, you mean? Yeah, that was a big question. We didn't fully understand what that meant. We thought probably it meant that Jesus had experienced these feelings himself and therefore knew how to wrestle with them. But that was kind of a question as the way it was phrased. So anyway, I still want to hear what other people had discovered. Lisa.
So the first thing that we noticed, being a group of mostly women, was that as soon as the fever left her, she began to serve them, and that kind of wonder if maybe that was a little self-serving on the part of Jesus, right? But no, we didn't linger there very long. But we also really wrestled with the demon part, because that was the part that seemed the most inscrutable. And our conversation took us to thinking about what's the role of healing within his message, because it seemed that there was a tension there between having healed someone and then the whole city coming to be healed and have demons cast out, and then him needing to leave and be in the wilderness and be in isolation and by himself, and then choosing to move on rather than go back where people were looking for him so that he could continue to spread his message. And so we were kind of wondering if there was a role of healing, but at some point it became a distraction from his message. So we felt there's a little tension there.
Raised multiple dimensions. And this story, that one of the reasons I thought this would be a fun one to process this way this morning is because you had so many components to it. You have the mother-in-law who is healed and then immediately goes to serve. And And you have Jesus retreating into the wilderness to recharge or whatever. You have the multitude coming upon him. And as you pointed out, then you have Jesus, rather than coming back and serving all these other people who are sort of pressing upon him, he says, now I need to move on. So what's that to say for us? I mean, it left a lot of disappointed people behind, I'm sure. Some other thoughts. On Zoom. We have another pastor here. Come on, Christine. What did you get from this? Put you on the spot.
You're making me laugh. Well, there were a couple of things that came out of our group. One was Bill was pointing out, quite rightly, how challenging in our current mindset of, because science, knowing about science, knowing about what, a little bit more about how things work, that we don't tend to look to demonic possession as being the first reason that people are not well. And so these passages that ask us to kind of go to another period of time in history and mindset are challenging for us. And then so we discussed that a little bit, and then we also were discussing, some contemporary thoughts about what if the demon is a stand-in for the things that separate us. Because whenever somebody was labeled as having demonic possession, what that meant was you're impure and you're cast out of society. And Jesus was trying to bring people back into society. So what are the current things that cast people out of society, like racism or homophobia or sexism? And that maybe then the knowing that the knowledge of that Jesus had was he knew the things that cast people out of society. He was familiar with those things. So he tried to do something about it, but then he had to go on, because then, let's face it, ultimately the community's got to be, as UCC knows well, we're always the ones that have got to be stepping up and doing the work. So that was one place where we were going with our thinking about it.
Interesting insights. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the demon piece is something that we moderns question a lot, and wonder what that. But I do think, thinking of it broadly, the demonic forces that separate. Good point. And that would be the demons of racism, the demons of phobias and misogyny, and whatever, everything that fractures, sets apart. And that's a piece of healing, right? To heal those, to cast out those demons and bring in health and wholeness. To me, that the text speaks to that a lot.
And it's kind of icky that to cast it out,
as I
you
was
have
reading,
to know it.
And a lot of commentaries I wrote or read take exception with this, or a little bit of modern sensibilities. Peter's mother-in-law is sick and immediately goes back to, making sandwiches or whatever, and didn't get a chance to recoup. It's like, one commentator pointed out, it's like, well, when Lazarus is raised from the dead, he doesn't go right back to work. In fact, a few chapters later, he's hanging out, and Mary and Martha are serving. And so the traditional role of women's place to our modern sensibilities may be in question, but in that society, there is something about your constraints, of course, for what the society dictates you are allowed to do, and so forth. Those are things contextual that we need to consider. But also, one knew their role, the place where they serve. So she is not just to be this is an interesting wordplay. An invalid would make one invalid, spelled the same way. I don't know if there's roots to that common word, but invalid and invalid are the same, literally the same word. So to have the ability to play your role in the society was important. So to be taken out of that due to illness is also to lose your sense of place in the community. So to have a role, to have a thing you can do, and in the case of Peter's mother-in-law, who is nameless, unfortunately, but she was given back that place and that ability to serve. Now that may be still raise the questions of why we're limited, why did women have such limited roles, but we still wrestle with that today. So, yeah. Anyway, we could go on. Is there anything else, some beautiful insights on this? The other piece is Jesus retreating for renewal. And as a reminder of us, if we are to serve, and you can imagine Jesus has these pressures put upon him to serve everyone, heal everyone. It's a reminder to us, whatever it is we do, we need time to get away, reflect, and recharge. So Jesus is modeling that behavior. And then this moving on to other towns, there is no doubt that many, many people were disappointed that he didn't come back and heal their many needs, but again, he understood the broader mission for which he was a part of. That's a beautiful reminder to us. We can be stuck in our place because of all the demands, or we can stay focused on what it is we are called to do and do what we feel we're called to.